This is UNG Nighthawk All-Access. Hello everyone, Craig Corbin, and welcome to the very first episode, series that will take an in-depth look at the student athletes, the staff, the coaches that all take part in athletics here at the University of North Georgia. And you'll see it right here on Georgia Mountain Television. The opportunity to learn about athletes, staff, and coaches, I think you'll find interesting, and we have a great show for you today. We'll visit with the head men's soccer coach, Pat Parris, also learn about sports performance with the director of Sports Performance, Rich Pruett, and a women's soccer player, one of the more talented you'll ever find, with an unusual hobby that I think you'll find very interesting, and that's all straight ahead on this edition of Nighthawk All-Access. And as I mentioned, our first guest, Pat Parris. Coach Parris, welcome.
Welcome, Craig. Thank you for having me.
It is a great day, and right here in the soccer complex at North Georgia, and it's a good time for North Georgia soccer. A great start to the season, unbeaten through 2 matches.
Yes, if we're counting preseason, still undefeated as well. So any kind of perks that we could have for our team, any kind of accolades, we want to continue to push towards them, because we want to make sure that we're building up certain kind of armor to make sure that it is difficult to beat the University of North Georgia men's soccer team.
Now this is your 13th season, so it's hard to imagine that many years have passed here in Dahlonega, but obviously you have grown very comfortable with the university here, the athletic program. Talk about that, your time here in Dahlonega.
Wow, it's been an evolution. I want to say back in 2007, I first came from down in Statesboro, Nat territory, down in Georgia Southern. We've come a long way from facilities to, I remember where we didn't practice on this facility here. We had to practice at different venues in Gainesville, Dawsonville, Torrington, Lumpkin County High School. We were everywhere. We were nomads, and we still had to find a way to win. And I want to say it was 2013 when University of North Georgia was able to come through and bless us with these awesome facilities in order for us to at least train where we play. And I think that adds a lot towards recruiting. That adds a lot towards just the brand itself. And it's an awesome feeling when visiting teams come down the hill, players take out their phones, they're recording, they're taking pictures, they're adding it to Snapchat or Instagram because they can't believe that these wonderful facilities exist. And for us, recruiting has been at a higher level, better than what it was back in the dark days. And it's kind of one of those things where UNG, we're continuing to add more things to make it one of the premier programs in the state. And it's awesome when you can recruit kids that should be playing at a Division I level, but we're able to get them here and play within our philosophy, and we've done well so far. So for me, complacency cannot sit in, comfort cannot sit in. We always got to continue to push, because there are things that we want to make historical-wise for our program. There's a lot of firsts that we still have not captured yet, but every time we have an opportunity to play, that's an opportunity to change history.
It speaks volumes when you talk about the recruiting process and attracting players that could be playing at Division I programs. And we'll talk more in just a moment about a lot of the new faces that you have this year. But the tradition that you're building with consistent appearances in the conference tournament, I think 8 years in a row now, and you go back to the 2017 team that made it to that championship at the Peach Belt Conference and came down to penalty kicks.
Yes. We, if I could be honest, since 2007 I first took the job, there's about maybe 7 players in the classroom that we had in February, and the first thing I put on the board was national title. They laughed, they snickered, and they were like, "Coach, are you serious?" It's like, hey, we need to write it down in order to speak it into belief. And I said, it may not be now, and it may not be in 3 years or 5 years, but we need to plant the seed in order for us to have a long-term goal that is doable and quite achievable. And obviously with different resources between facilities and scholarships and everything like that, all those things will continue to generate towards our program and allowing us those opportunities to get our first NCAA berth. We've had so many near chances back in 2010 through 2012 where they took the top 6 teams of the region, and in 2010 and 11, if I remember correctly, we finished 7th. 2012 we finished 8th.
Right on the cusp.
Right on the cusp. And then you mentioned 2017, and that's a wonderful opportunity to get the automatic qualifier. And, penalty shot, crossbar, post, out, game over. But the fact is that we're getting these players that are putting ourselves in great situations. And I think the other part of it too, these kids are coachable and much more adaptable to the game of soccer, which has changed from 2007 all the way to 2019. And that's the part where, it's always a plus to recruit in-state. And it's even more of a plus when we're able to go outside the country to bring players into our program to continue the North Georgia way of trying to finish within the top 3, top 4 in the conference, so it puts us in a good situation for a national title.
Talk about the evolution and the change in communicating with your players in just the 13 seasons that you've been here. The change in social media and the utilization of that obviously has impacted what you do as a coach. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're marketing ourselves 24/7, whether we know it or not. And it's always about the brand. And the University of North Georgia brand is one of those most powerful brands in Georgia right now because we're hot. I'm not talking about soccer, I'm talking about University of North Georgia as a whole. And for us, I think it's very valuable for any coach to use those resources to be able to recruit, to be able to market, to be able to showcase what we're doing here is not at an amateur level. We're at a professional level, even though we are working with amateurs, but we're acting and portraying a professional atmosphere. And those are the kind of traits that we want for our student athletes. So for us, we're using these mechanisms in order to communicate. We are with a group of generation of kids that everything is instant, just like that. So we have to be able to adapt within those times to make sure that we're right there with them. Sure. And we're not slowing down with age. My birthday was the other day. We're not slowing down. We have to find clever ways of different motivation tools,
sure,
in order to make sure that they're able to live outside of the social media, but still at the same time enjoy the social media of technology within their profession of being a student athlete.
Coach, a great start to the season. We look forward to following the men's program this season. Again, thanks to head coach Pat Parris, the first guest right here on Nighthawks All-Access. And this reminder as well, Georgia Mountain Television is proud to be the newest affiliate of the Nighthawk Sports Network. They'll be providing both live and replay coverage of Nighthawk Sports Network broadcasts of men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball, as well as baseball and softball. You can find them on Windstream cable channels 78.12 and HD channel 890. Stay with us. Nighthawk All Access returns in just a moment.
Shop, play, and stay in Dahlonega, the heart of the North Georgia mountains.
The UNG Bookstore is the one-stop shop where students can get anything they need for the classroom and fans can find everything they need to support the Nighthawks, from shirts and jackets to car decals and tailgating chairs. Gear up at the Nighthawks nest with officially licensed UNG merchandise. Be sure to shop in store to find the item of the week. Visit our stores in Dahlonega, Gainesville, Oconee, and Cumming, or check us out online at ungbookstore.com. The UNG Bookstore is a proud sponsor of North Georgia Athletics.
Back we are on UNG Nighthawks All Access. A big thanks to Coach Pat Parris and the men's soccer program. And we'll have coming up ahead a very interesting segment on one of the student athletes here at North Georgia. We are in a very important part of the campus. This is where a lot of the hard work gets done. We're joined now by the Director of Sports Performance, Rich Pruett. Rich, welcome.
Thank you.
It's, of course, the UNG Sports Performance Weight Room. And looks like a lot of activity goes on in this place.
It does. This place stays packed, and this is not how it normally is, so this is a rarity.
Typically, you're involved with how many student athletes on any given day?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we'll typically see almost every single student athlete run through here. And then Tuesday, Thursday, we'll get the other ones coming through here first thing in the morning. So we'll run through well over 150 athletes every day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Scheduling, obviously a premium.
Yes.
Being able to meet everyone's need as far as scheduling goes.
Yes.
and what they need to accomplish. And the one thing that I think perhaps would be of interest to folks is learning how the regimen that you're working with the different student athletes in the different sports differs based on what they need to accomplish.
Yep.
Talk about that.
That's a great question. So the way that we set up all of our programming is we kind of get an idea of how well each athlete moves at the very beginning of the academic year. We'll bring them in during their physicals, we'll put them through a movement screen, and that kind of identifies where they're more predisposed to any type of fatigue-related injury and where they have specific limitations. So once we identify those areas, now we're able to kind of, pick and choose, plug and play per se, on the specific movement patterns that they need to work on, improve, and the ones that we can really just go ahead and attack and get after and start building to build strength. As far as specific exercises, that's how we identify where their specific exercises are going to be.
Let's take one sport, for example, that might be outside the normal realm of conversation or thought with regard to training, and that being, let's just say, golf. Yes. And I would think that the average person would think, okay, well, you need to focus just primarily on the strength from one side of the athlete with the way they're moving through the ball. Is that reality, or what do you work with the golf athletes?
Is this a personal question, Craig?
Yes. I do have the question.
So there we go. I knew it. All right. So a mentor of mine told me one time, I was working with an amateur PGA player, and I said, what is your best advice to me as a young strength coach, performance coach? What do I need to do? And he told me, he goes, Rich, they live in the transverse plane, rotation every day. That's what they do. You need to get them as strong as they can be in the sagittal plane, straight up and down. So everything that we, not everything per se, but a lot of our focus is going to be outside of that rotational plane and just getting their foundation strong, making sure that they are able to move weight in the sagittal plane. And it's unbelievable, Craig, what happens when they start putting that into the rotational plane. They're able to get their hips into it a little bit more and they start producing a little bit more power. And then after about 4 months of being consistent on a regiment, they'll come in and they'll be, wow, I'm seeing an extra 20 yards on my drive.
Would that be an area that would be consistent across all the sports that you work with here at North Georgia with regard to that core strength?
Yeah, we call it the pillar. Right? So that's our our philosophy word that we'll use within, when we're talking with the athletes and with our assistants, is the pillar. And it's because when we look at our core, right, we've got the bottom of the pillar and the top of the pillar. It's our shoulders. The bottom is going to be our hips, right? We've got to make sure that everything within that pillar stays centered and stays strong. And if we have any leaks or anything like that, then that's where we're going to start seeing fatigue-related injuries occur. That's where we're going to start seeing other issues. Our lower backs will start getting tight and so forth. So across the board, we utilize specific breathing patterns as centering our pillar. We use different, cable exercises. We're going to use different, kettlebell body weight training, anything it is. We're going to utilize all of these different tools in the toolbox to make sure that we're centered and making sure that we can transfer energy well. And as soon as we learn how to transfer energy well, and we start building that strength to transfer energy well, you're really going to start seeing that rotational power come out.
One of the most obvious things that hits you when you walk in to the weight facility here at UNG, a bit of Greek up on the wall. And Rich, I'm curious, arete, tell me about that.
So arete is a philosophy that I kind of came about. One of our first student assistants here, Travis Core, he was reading through something and brought this to me and said, Rich, I think you'll like this. And I was like, okay, yeah, let me check this out. And he's like, read this quote right here. And I read it and it just hit me and it stuck. Arete, excellence achieved through competition. And so I did some digging and did a lot of digging and a lot of reading on philosophy and Greek teachings and Aristotle and going back and looking at different gods and goddesses and all of this and realized that this has been an instrument that's been used to teach, constantly working and trying to achieve excellence, not just in one realm of being a human, but in all realms of being an individual. So in your spiritual life, in the classroom, in the weight room, on your field of sport, whether it's the field, the court, whatever it is, you're constantly striving every day to just get better at one of those every single time. So whenever the athletes come in at the very beginning of the year, we'll talk to them about Arete. We'll tell them the story of Arete and how it was taught to Alexander the Great, and how we're in here. And that's kind of how we set the tone, we set the culture every time you're walking in here, because it's not going to be every single day. But the 2 to 3 or 4 times a week that you walk in here, we're here to get better in this. And that's what we've really got to focus in for this 1 hour. Let's get a little bit better. It doesn't have to be in every single exercise. It can be in just one, or it can be in one movement. But we're going to get better at one thing today.
And every time they walk in and do a workout, they are reminded and are mindful of Arete.
And you'll hear that too. If we're breaking it down right before a game, you'll hear Arete. And that's to make sure that we're getting a little bit better every single time we're stepping onto the field of competition.
That's a phenomenal incentive. Unbelievable. Now your 7th year here at North Georgia, obviously committed to the program here at North Georgia. What's been the best part of your time here in Dahlonega?
Really the relationships. The relationships are, something that you hold really special, and every class that comes through here, every cohort that comes through here, when they graduate, it's hard to see them go. We see them throughout the entire year. They're coming in during the summer, they're in here during the fall, the winter, and you start to, create these bonds with these student athletes and watch them grow and develop.
I don't think that would be extremely rewarding from your standpoint.
It's unbelievable.
Seeing growth.
And getting to see, when they graduate, and then getting to go to weddings, and, just watching them grow up and become successful, and, just to know that, we had a small part in helping them get to where they are today is extremely rewarding.
Without question.
It's definitely the most rewarding part of where I'm at today.
Well, what you do, you and your team here, such an important part of the entire athletic program at North Georgia. We appreciate being able to learn more about what goes on here in sports performance.
Thank you.
And we will stay right with you here on Nighthawk All-Access. Back in a moment.
It takes more than intelligence and talent to succeed in life. It takes grit and a commitment to excellence.
It takes the willingness to serve others and a cause greater than yourself.
It requires you to push boundaries,
ask difficult questions,
and understand the world around you.
It requires you to know your strengths
and weaknesses, and have the desire to make yourself better than you were yesterday.
It requires you to be independent, efficient, and tolerant.
Ultimately, it requires you to be a leader. At the University of North Georgia, we develop leaders.
Leaders who serve our country abroad to tackle the challenges of the world.
And leaders who serve at home to improve our way of life.
Leaders who never quit.
Leaders who lead by example and not exception.
Leaders who are tough, but fair.
Leaders who are relentless and passionate.
Leaders who solve problems and don't make excuses.
Leaders who do the right thing, even when no one's looking.
There's nothing average about the University of North Georgia and its Corps of Cadets.
If you've got what it takes, then bring it.
UNG Nighthawk All-Access continues. And greatly appreciate our visit with Rich Pruett, Director of Sports Performance. We are not in studio. We're not on a field. We're not even on campus. We're at Lumpkin County Wimpy Airport. Why, you may ask? Well, I mentioned earlier that we were going to get to visit with one of the more talented female soccer players you've ever met with a unique hobby. And it's pleasing to join us now, Taylor Malasek. Taylor, welcome.
Thank you.
And we are at an airport. I wonder if that has anything to do with a hobby you might have.
I don't know, does it?
I think it would be perhaps that Taylor is a student aviator. I have to know, before we talk soccer, before we talk academics, how did you get the bug to learn about flying?
Well, my father, he was a pilot, and he's been flying all my life, and so we live in a little bubble, you can call it, and so there's a lot of people that are pilots that go there and live. My brother and sister were both looking for careers, and so my father was trying to push them towards being a pilot. And he was like, all right, why don't you guys go get your pilot's license, and maybe that'll help you decide if you want to be a pilot or not. And he didn't want to leave me out, and so he was like, Taylor, do you want to go do it too? And I was like, I can't pass up an opportunity to learn how to fly a plane, so I took it from there.
What was it like the first time you sat in the cockpit of a plane?
Very hot. There's no air conditioning in there, but it was a little nerve-wracking because, I mean, you're in this metal thing and you're going to go fly it around, and it's not like a car where if you're in trouble you can just kind of pull over and stop. If you're in trouble in a plane, you have to land, and there's only not many places you can land, so I was a little nervous.
It's a very involved process, and for those of us that have never been through that, walk us through how you went about the coursework and the hours that it required to get to the level that you are today.
You have to start with ground school. You have to learn a little bit about the weather, a little bit about the plane, a little bit about airports, and then you also have to start with flying, and you're with an instructor the entire time. And they usually take you through, they usually have most of the control at the beginning, and they'll let you fly around in the beginning, and they'll be telling you all this stuff. It's just so much information. And you have to take it, and then outside the plane you have to study some more and act like you're flying planes while you're sitting at the table. And you have to get more and more comfortable as you go through that.
Obviously, it's something that you took to very easily. Is it something that you would see staying with in life?
It's something I never got to finish my private's license, so that's something I want to go back and do and fully finish. But I don't know if I would ever take it as a career. Right now I'm looking at the medical field, but it's definitely a hobby I would like to keep going with. And that brings us to the academic part of the equation. Taylor, of course, one of the more accomplished soccer players at UNG, and a 4.0 in the classroom. You're a junior, pre-med in biology. Tell us about that aspiration for the world of medicine. I've always been interested in sciences, and the medical stuff is always very interesting to me. I like helping people, so I was like, okay, what job can I do to help the most people I can? And since I found so much interest in science and medicine, I was like, I can go through that. And my mom was a nurse, and so she always told me stories about hospital. I was like, that just sounds so cool. So it's not easy to find the time to take care of the coursework, to maintain a 4.0, as well as being a collegiate athlete. Talk about finding that happy medium between all the responsibilities that you have as a college athlete. Procrastination is, the worst. You can't do it. You get an assignment, you have to go and work on it, you have to go do it. Soccer, I found time to play soccer. I was like, go do that. And actually it helped me a little bit playing soccer because it kept me busy, and I knew I didn't have time to procrastinate. And so for me, it was just getting stuff done as soon as I could. You talk about being a 4.0 student. Of course, Taylor is a presidential scholar in the Peach Belt Conference 2 seasons in a row, and your academic accolades date back to high school. Of course, we talk about your time at McIntosh, extremely successful in the classroom, and Taylor was part of 3 state championship teams. Tell us about that stretch. That had to be a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. It really was. The team was great. Each of the 4 years that we had, the 1 year we didn't win, it was unfortunate, but 3 out of 4 is not bad. You look at the transition too, academically from high school to college, that's a big jump. But on the field, on the pitch, as far as soccer, first of all, what attracted you to the University of North Georgia here in Dahlonega? It started with my neighbors. They have like 3 generations that had gone to North Georgia, and we're really close friends with them. And so they're like, Taylor, go look at this school. So I did take a campus tour, and I looked, and I was like, okay, it's cool. But that was like my first college I looked at, and I was like, I don't really know what I want. And so then I went and bounced around, saw different colleges, and then all of a sudden North Georgia came back into play, and I was like, wait a second, that does have everything I want. And so luckily I got in, and Coach wanted me, and I came from there. And speaking of Coach Adams, what's it like to play for Coach Adams? He's a lot of fun. yeah, playing under him I've loved it. I've enjoyed every moment.
Obviously, the team's off to a great start, and congratulations to you on, I think, your 4th career brace, 2 goals against Limestone in the 86th and 88th minute of that match. That was sort of the icing on the cake. I think it was a 1-goal score at that point when you got your first of 2. I noticed in your bio on the athletics website that as far as your biggest thrill, it's scoring. You obviously do that a lot.
Oh, yeah, that's my job, to score, and it is a lot of fun. By then we actually had a 2-goal lead. Meredith and Abby scored, and they kind of opened it up for me, and I was able to slip the 2 in there at the last moment. And so yeah, it's just a big relief, and it's adrenaline. There's nothing else like it.
Talk about this year's team and your aspirations collectively as a unit.
Right now, we focused a lot on team chemistry at the beginning. We did this big military thing. We carried water jugs for hours at a time, and it really helped bond us together, and it pushed us to the limits, and we were like, okay, we can do a lot. And so now our goal is to take 1 game at a time, and hopefully we can get a good result at the end of the season and move on.
You talk about being pushed to the limit. Compare the athletic challenges with the challenges in the cockpit learning to fly.
It's kind of similar in some ways. The flying was a lot of stress in that moment. And I guess on the field you could have a lot of stress because all of a sudden you might feel like, okay, we need to get a result, we need to do it now. So sometimes I even see myself saying to myself, okay, I can fly a plane, I can do this. And so I use it to my advantage if I can.
I also understand that you are very fond of fishing, and Taylor has a skill that no one else I know has. In addition to being a student aviator, she can ride a unicycle. Okay, tell me about that.
Okay, that again came from my dad. He told a story of how he rode a unicycle when he was younger, and I was like, wait a second, you can ride a unicycle, why can't I ride a unicycle? So they ended up getting me one for Christmas, and I spent hours learning on that. I was finally able to where I could get it and I could turn, and once I rode it, I was like, okay, I'm done with that thing. But yeah, it's something I like a challenge, and I've always enjoyed learning how to ride stuff, and so I took that and I was like, now I can ride a unicycle. Obviously
you have been extremely busy from day one in your time here at North Georgia. What's been the most enjoyable part of your time at UNG?
I'd say the people. Like each year the team's been great. All the teachers and the faculty, they've all been super nice and helpful, and I've just really enjoyed everyone who's been around.
We anxiously await the result of this season. Off to a fantastic start. Congratulations on that. I want to wrap up with the quote that you have on your bio, and I think it's so telling when you look at all that you've accomplished so far in your life. And Taylor's favorite quote, "Today I will do what others won't so that tomorrow I can do what others can't." Taylor, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Nighthawk All-Access returns in just a moment.
I'm Sonia McClain with Red Rooster Realty. Fall is right around the corner, and it doesn't get any prettier than this. Have you been thinking about buying in Georgia's Lake and Mountain Paradise? Give me a call at 770-480-4777.
Coming up on the Nighthawk Sports Network, Hawk Talk airs Mondays at 3:30 on our flagship radio station, Glory 97.9. The women's soccer team hosts Francis Marion on September the 28th at 1 p.m. in Peach Belt Conference action. And the men's soccer team hosts West Alabama on October 3rd at 5 p.m. That's all coming up on the Nighthawk Sports Network.
A huge thanks to all our guests on the inaugural edition of UNG Nighthawks All-Access. We look forward to being able to visit with a lot of the student athletes, the staff, and coaches here at UNG. We'll see you next time.